Welcome one and all. This is the online learning platform at Department of Civil Engineering, BMS Institute of Technology and Management, Bangalore. I am Dr. Rajesh Gopinath and you are along with me for the course Environmental Protection and Management. For a change, today's session will be engaged by Miss Aishwarya, a student of batch 2015 who had carried out her final year project, a live project on environmental management systems at Wipro GE Private Limited under the joint guidance of Mr. Fanindra and myself. As a part of this experience, she had gained first-hand knowledge on EMS and the 4 important steps: plan, do, check, act in ISO 14001. So I take this opportunity to welcome Miss Aishwarya, who will be engaging today's session on ISO 14001 EMS model Pdca for all of you. Thank you.
Good day everyone. This is Aishwarya, an alumnus of BMSIT-CIVIL Civil Department 2015-19 batch. Today I am going to take you through the topics covered under the module 3 of Environmental Protection and Management. This module deals with environmental management systems. So, what is an environmental management system, or in short, EMS? To put it in simple words, an EMS is a tool. This tool is a set of processes and practices that enable an organization to address its environmental concerns. An environmental management system is based on the ISO 14001 standard. Now, what is ISO 14001? Before that, ISO stands for International Organization for Standardization. This is an organization based in Geneva, Switzerland, which develops standards for various products, processes, and industries. The ISO 14001 specifies the standard for the establishment and maintenance of an EMS. Now let's talk about some of the benefits of an EMS. The implementation of an EMS would reduce the waste generation and thereby decreasing the cost of disposal and waste treatment. This leads to cost savings and also decreases the environmental pollution caused by the organization. It hence decreases environmental risks and increases the market value and branding of the organization. Now let's talk about some of the barriers of EMS. Since EMS is a relatively new tool and not many people are completely aware of what exactly it is, there is the fear of the unknown. Also, certain organizations may lack the resources, may it be monetary or other resources which are essential to implement an EMS. Also, there may be a lack of technical expertise, which is an essential component in bringing about an EMS into action. Also, the fear of failure, since it's a tool which is not widely known, The implementation may be difficult and one may not know what exactly the outcomes of implementing an EMS would be. So these are some of the barriers of why most organizations don't adopt an EMS. The 5 major elements of ISO 14001 and the environmental management system are namely policy, planning, implementation and operation, checking, and management review. Now, the first element being a policy. An organization needs to define its policy. The environmental policy document holds all the major goals that the organization plans on achieving at the end of the successful implementation of an EMS. So this policy document serves as the basic guideline for the organization to address its environmental concerns in a broader outlook. The next 4 elements are part of the Pdca cycle, which is expanded as the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. Planning involves charting out all possible activities, processes, practices, and procedures that happen within an organization. This overview helps us determine environmental aspects. Now, what are environmental aspects? An environmental aspect is any activity, product, or process that can influence the environment. These aspects are then evaluated for their impact on the environment. These impacts could be beneficial or detrimental to the environment. The impacts are classified as releases to air, water, land, use of resources, use of energy, and generation of waste products. For example, in a thermal power plant, an activity would be burning of coal. The aspect there would be generation of flue gases, and the impact would be releases to air. Whereas in a tie and dye industry, dyeing will be the activity. Usage of colors and chemical residues will be an aspect, and releases to land or releases to water would be the impact. Organizations need to prioritize legal requirements in order to be prepared for the implementation of an EMS. For example, in the thermal power plant, the generation of flue gases would cause air pollution. Thereby, a thermal power plant is under the legal requirement of the Air Act. This means that any thermal power plant must obey and abide by the rules prescribed under the Air Act. Similarly, in a tie and dye industry, the industry must abide by the rules of the Water Act. There may be other requirements such as customer requirements, IS standards, pollution prevention programs, and best practices according to industry association guidelines, which must be followed. The last part of planning involves the determination of environmental objectives and environmental targets. Now, environmental objectives are the overall environmental goal. This is in regard to the environmental policy and deals with the organization as a whole, whereas environmental targets may be applied to the entire organization or to a part of the organization depending on what the target is. The next step in the PDCA cycle is the do. This involves implementation and operation. In order to achieve the set environmental objectives and targets, it is essential to establish environmental management programs or EMPs. EMPs are merely programs which define clearly the objectives and targets set for the organization by the organization in its policy document. These provide responsibility at various levels of the organization to the people in order to achieve these targets. It also defines the time frame and the method in which these objectives or targets are to be achieved. So that completes the process of planning, after which the process of the implementation and operation of the planned environmental objectives and targets is to be achieved. This falls under the category do. In order to achieve the implementation and operation of the set environmental objectives and targets, it is essential to implement programs called the environmental management programs, which design and designate the responsibility on how to achieve the set targets at various levels of the organization. This also provides the time frame in which the set objectives and targets are to be achieved. It is also important to clearly define the resources available, the roles of the respective persons, define their responsibilities and authority. Also, it is necessary to increase the competence, training, and awareness of the employees at various levels of the organization, beginning from the lowest level employees to the top management. It is very important to address the employees, the consequences of every action of theirs within the organization and its consequences onto the environment. Thereby, it is very clear that communication is very important among the employees of an organization in order to successfully implement an EMS. Also, it is very important to document every other activity or process or practice that is followed within the organization. It is important to document the environmental policy, the set environmental objectives and targets. Also, it is essential to document the scope of the EMS of the organization. It is also essential to maintain records of every other practice or activity that happens within the organization. Although documentation is very essential, document control and management is more important. It is essential for the assigned authority to approve the documents before they are put to use. It is also essential to update the necessary documents before they are used, taking into consideration the legal and other requirements. Also, it is essential to maintain the documents in a chronological order and also ensure that they are readily available when they are required. If at all the documents are handwritten, it is to be ensured that they are legible. Also, it is good to have a soft copy backup of all the files which are readily available for later use. It is also important to delete unrequired or older versions of the documents which are of no use in the current situation, in order to prevent usage of the same documents in the future. Apart from document control, operational control is also essential. Operational control is the process or procedure in order to control situations which may occur during operation. Thereby, this procedure serves as a guideline in order to be followed while carrying out a particular operation. For example, the usage of electrical equipments in manufacturing may lead to the generation of sparks, fires, or even electric shocks. So, a person who is involved in the operation of electrical equipment in manufacturing needs to follow the following procedures, such as wear safety glasses to protect eyes from the sparks that may occur, wear safety gloves to prevent oneself from an electric shock, and also wear safety boots to prevent oneself from electric shocks and to provide proper grounding. Also, along with this, it is essential to keep the employees of the organization prepared for emergency situations. It is necessary to conduct fire drills and first aid training lessons within the organization in order to keep the employees updated about necessary emergency preparedness for emergency situations. With that, we come to the end of the implementation and operation. The next element is monitoring and measurement, or the check of the PDCA cycle. Now, this step involves assessing how well you have implemented the EMS into an organization. It is essential to determine how well the organization has been able to achieve the set environmental objectives and targets. This step proves to be very important as it determines the amount of revision of the set objectives and targets for the next year. This is very essential in order to determine if the organization is actually able to achieve its set targets, or if the targets are not practical at the moment, as the organization may lack resources currently. This step basically provides room for revision of the currently set environmental objectives and targets. For example, a thermal power plant needs to monitor the release of flue gases into the environment on an hourly basis, daily basis, weekly basis, and monthly basis. Now, if their set target is to reduce the flue gas generation by 50%, but due to incorporation of cleaner fuels or other means, if they're able to achieve only a 10% reduction, then their current set environmental objective is not practical or currently not feasible, taking into consideration the monetary factor or the finances of the organization. So the organization may have to revise the percentage achievable reduction to maybe about 20 or 25% in the following year, or the industry must put in more finances and find out better alternatives to the currently followed alternatives in order to achieve 50% reduction of flue gas generation and release to the air. Along with monitoring, it is essential to evaluate the compliance of the organization to legal requirements and other requirements, keeping into consideration the environment. While assessing the performance of the industry upon implementation of an EMS, it is essential to identify the existing non-conformities in the organization across all the activities, processes, and procedures that happen in the organization or industry. It is then essential to take corrective or preventive measures in order to reduce the occurrence of these non-conformities. Now, what is a non-conformity? For example, if the set environmental objective of the organization is to reduce the wastage of water or to reduce water consumption within the organization, then if you have faulty or leaky taps within the organization, then this becomes a non-conformity. So the corrective action would be to get all the taps across the organization checked for leaky taps or other problems within the pipelines and get them fixed. Another preventive action would be to use sensor fit into the taps in order to give water or dispense water only when a hand is gestured in front of it. So corrective and preventive measures are to be adopted based on the company's finances and financial situation currently. Also, during the checking process, it is also essential to check the records of the documented files in order to check if the older records still exist and to remove them, and to also check if the documents are maintained in a chronological order and that no documents are lost, etc. Also, a main part of the check process is to conduct internal audits. It is essential to periodically assess the implementation of an EMS and to check if the set targets and objectives are being achieved or are being tried to be achieved at various levels of the organization. It is essential to check if the employees are following what has been communicated to them. These results are to be provided to the management in order to establish how well the EMS has worked or how much of a success it has been. If the EMS is not performing well, then what other methods are to be implemented in order to enhance the efficiency of the existing EMS? This process of checking actually provides a lot of insights to what has been done and what should be done further. The final step or element of an EMS is the review, or broadly called as the management review, which falls under the act of the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. So this step involves reviewing the environmental management system in order to ensure that it is effective and suitable to the organization. This step basically assesses more opportunities in order to improve the existing EMS. For the management review, the internal audits and the evaluation of compliance to the legal and other requirements and the current environmental performance of the industry, along with how the corrective and preventive actions have enhanced the efficiency of the EMS, basically helps assess the management on how successful the EMS has been in reducing the environmental concerns of the industry. As a result of the management review, the policy may be updated, the environmental objectives and targets may be revised, and the main motto of having a management review is to achieve continual improvement, which is the basic or forms the basis of an environmental management system. To summarize whatever we've learned in the session, an EMS is a set of all procedures and practices that enable an organization to address its environmental concerns. An EMS is based on ISO 14001 standard, which is a standard that deals with the establishment and maintenance of an environmental management system. There are many benefits of implementing an environmental management system, but there are also barriers to the implementation of an environmental management system. Further, the 5 elements of the ISO and an EMS are policy, planning, implementation and operation, checking or monitoring, and review. That covers module 3. That's all, folks. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Aishwarya. I sincerely hope that all of us have now understood the concept of Pdca as explained by Ms. Aishwarya and depicted by her via a flow chart in slide number 4. Please do note, Pdca is critical and integral for the successful functioning of EMS in any enterprise, firm or organization. The ideology behind Ms. Aishwarya engaging this session is due to the fact that she had carried out her final year project on environmental management system itself at Wipro GE Private Limited, which means she had a better first-hand knowledge and understanding of this concept with industrial examples and relevance, and all this beyond the curriculum. So with her delivering this session, I hope it has benefited one and all. I take this opportunity to thank Aishwarya once again, and I also thank all of you for your kind attention. Slide 5 is a list of references for your kind perusal. This is Dr. Rajesh Gopinath signing out. Godspeed.